Good. Okay, we're gonna, I guess we get started. To introduce our speaker today,
Yes.
Mr. Antaka.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this week's seminar. So today it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Dr. T. Sorry.
I have a very long section.
Yes.
So typically I go by allergy, but then I get confused by that comedian, notorious comedian allergy, the British comedian. So either way, I get in trouble. All right.
He received his Ph.D. in engineering mechanics from the University of Texas at Austin. He is currently the Miami Engineering Endowed Professor in the College of Engineering and also the director of the Advanced Infrastructure Materials Research Lab at the University of Miami. He is also the recipient of 2019 NSF CAREER Award. His research mainly focused on bio-inspired infrastructure, smart and self-healing technologies, is construction for space applications, and the mechanics of the energy materials. His works have been supported by different agencies like NSF, FDOT, and NASA, as well as industry. And today's call will explore innovative strategies for developing sustainable and resilient infrastructure materials. And we are very happy to have you with us today. Please join me in welcoming him.
Well, thank you, Alan, for the nice introduction. Thank you for the invitation, coordination, and thank you for attendance. I understand that this is the week before your spring break starts, so I really appreciate your particular Friday afternoon at this time. It's very hard to keep people up on campus. Thank you for your attendance. So today I'm going to talk about nature-based approaches for infrastructure materials. So this is our beautiful state, Florida. And I'm going to talk about some of the things that my group does to improve the resilience and sustainability of our infrastructure. I look at things through materials. Anything that you can think of is made of something. So the first step would be to address the materials that we use in infrastructure, and we use a lot of them in our infrastructure. So I collaborate with a wide range of folks. I am an engineer by training, but I collaborate with biology folks, mechanics, data sciences, chemistry, marine sciences, environmental sciences, and I believe that's the only way we can take to address the issue of resilience and sustainability in our infrastructure. Engineering is just one part of that equation. So we need to bring in marine scientists, biologists, environmental ecology, and different types of disciplines. So in order for me to give an overall of what we do, the first research for us that my group works on is related to bio-inspired self-healing infrastructure materials. In particular, here we are looking at cement or concrete-based materials. US infrastructure keeps getting a grade of D plus and C minus. Either one is horrible, right? C plus, C minus, D plus. So we need to do something about that. So this is an example of a lot of problems that we have in our infrastructure. So we need to do something about that. And one way we want to do that is to get inspiration from nature. Because nature does things in a very interesting and optimal fashion. To give you just one example, here you see an image of a sea urchin. This is a material consisting of calcium carbonate, right? Limestone. Limestone is very brittle, but this creature is able to have very flexible spines. Still made of limestone. You cannot think of limestone that you can bend. It cracks. But because of the needs and through billion years of evolution, now sea urchin spines are flexible. We can actually bend them. And this is because they need that to survive. And also human bones. Human bones is a nanocomposite materials. So if we look at how these nature-based materials are able to achieve such high mechanical properties, is because of a very tiny amount of biomolecules that we have in their structure. I'm going to talk about that in more detail in just a couple of minutes. So one idea that we had was, so God forbid, if you break your hand, you just put it in a cast, and your body is able to heal itself. So your body is a self-healing mechanism. So can we develop a type of infrastructure material that can heal itself without external intervention? So here you see a crack in concrete. And then here you see the same crack cracked here and then healed. So we were able to develop a type of infrastructure material that can heal without external intervention. So this is very important because concrete is the most widely used infrastructure material. So whatever you want to do to improve resilience and sustainability of infrastructure, you need to make sure that you can do something about concrete. The second aspect of concrete is that it's the most widely used material by humans only after water. This goes to show the sheer volume of concrete that we use in our infrastructure. And the third item is concrete is the most widely used engineering material, period. So I'm saying this just to indicate how important concrete is to our infrastructure. So whatever we want to do to advance our infrastructure, we need to do something about concrete. So just like how biological species do this, they have the ability to self-heal themselves. Can we do that in concrete? And the answer is yes, there is hope for it. And then we have shown this in our lab. So this was part of my NSF CAREER award, and we were able to successfully show that yes, you can develop such concrete. I'm going to go into a bit of more details later, but this is how you can increase the resilience of our infrastructure. Because you don't need to have traffic jams, you don't need to shut down highways to fix concrete. And more importantly, whatever you can see to fix are only the cracks that you see on the surface. Most of the cracks are not on the surface, they are well within the material and you don't see them. So what happened up there was not a crack on the image on the top, was not an external crack that you would be able to see and fix. That caused by an internal crack that you're not going to be able to see. But if you have a self-healing mechanism, you're able to heal the material and hopefully you can prevent disasters like that. So this self-healing is key to improving the resilience of our infrastructure. The research thrust too has to do with combining data sciences and machine learning and also bioinformatics to improve the resilience and sustainability of our infrastructure materials. The idea here is to take some of the biomolecules that we find in nature and try to see how they can improve certain functionality. Sometimes you want to improve strength, sometimes you want to improve resilience, sometimes you want to improve other properties. So this is something, this scheme is a machine learning scheme, and I know everyone by now is sort of familiar with machine learning, and it's a new buzzword in this day and age. But this is something that pharmaceutical companies have been using for 30, 40 years. This is how they make new drug discoveries. So they have a large data set of different biomolecules that they extract from nature. Right? So these are not lab synthesized biomolecules. These are all derived from nature. And they try to make connections between the molecular structure of these biomolecules and to try to see if there is any correlation between the molecular structure and the property of these enhanced infrastructure materials. So that's another research thrust that my group is working on, and we have made some progress. There are a lot of challenges, and obviously, the major challenge is just the limited size of the data sets that we have. So you cannot use machine learning if your data set is small. So we're working on that. So the third research for us has to do with using more sustainable infrastructure materials. Construction processes, infrastructure materials are responsible for one third of the entire CO2 emissions. Period. A lot of people do not know that how damaging concrete infrastructure is for the environment. One third is huge. Right? So we need to do something about that. Producing 1 ton of cement, only cement, I'm not talking about concrete or other things. 1 ton of cement releases 1 ton of CO2 into the environment. So it takes a lot of energy, it releases a lot of CO2 into the environment. So we need to do something about that. So even if you can change only 5% of concrete somehow, that will translate into huge benefits because of the sheer volume of infrastructure material we use. And the estimates are that we continue to use concrete in our infrastructure. There is no other ways. You're going to use them. So what we are doing in my lab is to be able to use low carbon and green alternatives to concrete. Some of the alternative materials that we are using, some of them are nature occurring, for example, calcium silicates that you can find in different locations from geological resources. So here you see some glass bottles. So we were approached by Florida Department of Environmental Protection, and also Department of Transportation. As you might know, Florida had this ambitious goal of having 80% or something percent recycling rate goal. There are 50% there, but they are still far away. So we were approached, and they were looking for a way to be able to recycle these waste glass. And we came up with an idea. We said, okay, we're gonna put them, and we're gonna put them in concrete. At first, we were not sure about what might happen to concrete. And what we found later through our research was that using ground waste glass in concrete improves the properties of concrete action. So this is another way to improve the environment, to reduce the amount of bad things that use in concrete, and also a good way of decreasing recyclability of waste glass. We use a lot of agricultural waste in concrete. We use biochar, we use cellulose nanocrystals that we have. What they do, I know I was talking to Amir, and they were talking about they use biochar for soil applications. We use that in concrete for a wide range of applications. One of them is they hold water in concrete, and then we can use that as a way of optimizing the properties of concrete. So we use biochar, we use cellulose nanocrystals, we use some algae base, we use seaweeds. I'm pretty sure that folks who live in Miami, they have encountered nasty smelling seaweeds on beaches at some time of the year in Florida. So we were approached by the waste management, and one way is to be able to turn them into biochar and use them in concrete. The one reason is, first of all, it enhances the properties of concrete. And secondly, concrete is a very good encapsulating material. So if you encapsulate something in concrete, it's not going to leach out. So that's why concrete is used in even nuclear waste encapsulation, because it's gonna just keep it. There is no, not that there is no way, but it provides a very good leak-free environment for whatever you put that in concrete. So we use also some enzyme base. Some of these enzymes that we use, we extract from soil, right? And we use them for calcium carbonate formation that we can later use in cell care. So we are trying to use a wide range of low carbon, green-based, sustainable materials in concrete, and we were able to make good progress in that area. Particularly, we are very interested in biochar because every day we see some new aspects of biochar that we haven't looked at before and how it can benefit the infrastructure to improve the sustainability of our infrastructure. So I sort of went over this, but again, just to go over it one more time, concrete, we've used that in a wide range of infrastructure. We use that in transportation systems, in buildings, in dams. We use that in our coastal infrastructure. We use that in our nuclear plants. We use that in marine structure. So it's basically everywhere. But one issue with concrete is that it is prone to crack. It cracks easily. So we need to find ways to improve its crack resistance. Also, there are new technologies where 3D printing and other robotic applications are used to improve concrete construction. But in all these cases, structural integrity plays a very important role. And also, there are some innovative ideas to use it as a battery. To use concrete as a battery, because in concrete you have a lot of ions. So it can, in theory, serve as a battery. And there are some proof of concepts work showing that there is a possibility for that, but I think it is far away from implementation. But in theory, it can be used as an energy storage medium. So if that could be a possibility, now you can think of the benefits that it can provide. I don't know what might happen with the new administration, but in theory, this is the possibility. So I talked about bio-inspired approach, but this is not new. I didn't come up with bio-inspiration myself. Humans have always been fascinated by biology, by nature. Mayans used seashell as dental implants a long time ago. So there are some bio-inspired materials in our history. And Leonardo da Vinci's flying machine was inspired by birds. What is this? Suction cup. We use that in many different applications. Do you know where the idea came from? Octopus. Octopus, there you go. The idea came from someone looking at octopus. It wasn't like, okay, one person decides, okay, next morning I'm gonna develop suction cups. No. Look at nature and see how interesting octopus moves around. Look at the octopus cups and also the suction cup. You see a very close resemblance. So the idea comes from octopus. So jet engine, to give you an example, the way that a jet moves around. So people looked at that and they were able to use that in the design of jet engines. Velcro, where do you think the idea comes from?
Feathers.
Ladder?
Feathers. The hook and eyes of feathers.
Yes. Gecko. Or?
Gecko.
Gecko?
Seeds.
No. I don't know if it happens this time of the year, but walk across the grass. By the time you make it all the way, you're going to see a lot of attached to your
Yes.
clothes.
Very good.
From plants. So idea comes from plants. Yeah, they're annoying, so you need to get them off. But Velcro, the idea comes from this. But just looking at nature. And the last one, you really need to help me out. You see these things on roads, right? Where does the idea come from?
Fishes?
No.
Pipes.
Is it those bioluminescent?
It did like on that.
So maybe that's of light into there.
So we use bio-inspiration in a wide range of applications. So what I'm talking about here is not new, but I'm taking it in a new area. I'm taking the bio-inspired materials to develop hopefully more sustainable and resilient infrastructure materials. But there are examples. I can go on and on, but just to give you a flavor and also to have some fun. So I mentioned this before. Some of the nature-based materials exhibit excellent properties. So if you look at a seashell, right, top left, if you look at the inner part of seashell. It's called nacre. It is one of the toughest material you can find. It is tougher than concrete. It is tougher than steel. How does this happen? So if you look at the microstructure, you will see that it is at the microstructure level, it consists of 95% highly brittle calcium carbonate or limestone, and only 5% biomolecules. Only a tiny amount, 5%. These biomolecules are able to manipulate the microstructure of the materials. And that's how this nacre is able to exhibit such high crack resistance. Its crack resistance is higher than steel and concrete. You have, obviously, you need to compare mass by mass. You cannot compare different masses. Another example that I talked about earlier is sea urchin. You can actually bend these spines. All right. But calcium carbonate, limestone, they're very brittle. You cannot bend them. And human bones, very, very tough. Your teeth, you put them under continuous abuse. You eat different things. You chew hard, acidic, basic. Yes, at some point you need to see a dentist, but it is very tough. So because you have, again, a small amount of biomolecules in all these materials that are able to regulate and tune the properties of materials at the macro level. So our idea was to use these biomolecules to be able to enhance properties in our infrastructure material. So we started using some amino acids. If you put them together in a linear fashion, you get peptides. And if you connect a bunch of peptides in different forms, you're going to get proteins. And typically there are about 20 different amino acids in nature. So we decided to use different proteins that we can basically find. Getting highly purified proteins is very expensive. So we tried to use some of the proteins that we were able to get from biological waste. For example, some of the proteins that we use are obtained from blood, hemoglobin. We use, for example, from milk, from eggs. So these are all derived from bio-waste. So in a sense, they're pretty cheap. So the self-healing idea that we have here is that we use certain enzymes that we obtain from soil, right? So, and we also provide urea. So urea and some nutrients that act as bacteria food. So we put biomolecules, certain bacteria in concrete. And when the crack starts, they become activated and they start precipitating the healing materials. And at a certain point, they completely fill the crack. That's also what happens in our body. When you break your hand, certain enzymes become activated and they start producing the healing material. In our body, the healing material is calcium phosphate, right? But in concrete, it is calcium carbonate, all right? So we took that idea and implemented this idea, and it was pretty successful. So we got the enzyme from the soil. It had a very long name. Don't ask me the name of it. I can't even produce the name of the name of the enzyme we use. Urea, because you need a source of CO2 and some broth that acts as the food. And we were able to heal this crack. And I'm going to show you some images. So these are the proteins. Lysozyme is derived from egg. Albumin comes from cow milk or cow blood. And hemoglobin comes from also human blood. So you cannot just add these things into concrete. You cannot just add them like that. You need to be able to encapsulate them in certain gel. So here you use a hydrogel to be able to encapsulate these materials, just like a capsule that you take. The capsule, the medicine that you take, the drug is not the capsule. The drug is the powder inside. Capsule just acts as a vehicle to take this into your body because you don't want that to be absorbed in your throat. So you want it to go inside your body and get released where needed. So we use this to encapsulate. I'm not going to bore you with that. So we produce We crack some samples just to show how this process works, and I'm gonna show you this. The top row shows a crack. So we intentionally cracked some samples, right? So that we can monitor the healing process. The top row shows a control that doesn't have any biomolecules, doesn't have any cell healing property. You see a crack? I see, so here's the crack. After 3 days, you see the same crack. After 10 days, you see the same crack. Now, the middle row and the third row are the samples with biomolecules and cell healing. You see the crack? After 3 days, it's healed. You don't see the crack. Here, you see the crack. You see the crack. Maybe here it's not, but after it's gone. So it shows great promise in healing our infrastructure materials. This way you can improve the resilience. You don't need to worry about repairing and just healing. The ability to be able to regain its property is the definition of resilience. It's able to regain its property after the crack occurs. So this is a self-healing infrastructure material. We also have some fancy tools that we can show this better way. Here we use a micro CT analysis. A micro CT is just like the CT scan that we go to hospital. You take some CT scan. It provides the internal structure of your different parts. So this is a high energy CT scan that we use to look at the interior of materials. So clearly our CT scan also confirmed that the cracks were filled. Here are some mechanical properties. I'm not gonna bore you with that. We observed improved properties in both compressed strain and electrode. We looked at other durability aspects. Again, I'm not gonna bore you with that. We saw improvement. We looked at the chemical composition. We used TGA, FDIR, and XRD to characterize the healing material. And what we found was that it's primarily calcium carbonate. We used SEM scanning electron microscopy to look at the microstructure. So I'm sort of going through this a bit fast. Elemental analysis. Now, I'm going to talk about some of the low carbon materials that we use in concrete. So the first thing that I talked about had to do with self-healing. Now I'm going to talk about some of the results that we have in relation to low carbon sustainable materials. So when we use the waste glass, we were able to show that it improves the durability of our infrastructure. So here, this one shows how use of biochar improves the longevity of our infrastructure material. It prevents cracking. Here we use slag, which is slag is a byproduct of steel manufacturing processes. So they produce a lot of slag that is just out there, and typically it gets dumped into landfills. But nowadays, all our landfills are maxing out, so they don't have capacity to take more. So slag, we use that in cement. Slag is just a byproduct, a waste that you're able to recycle, reuse in concrete. So another benefit that we are gonna get from using concrete is that we are gonna use concrete as a carbon sequestration process. So we're gonna get CO2 that gets basically emitted into the environment, and we're gonna capture that in concrete. And this way, we are able to act as a carbon capture tool. The way it works is that, so you have a reactant, in this case, it's calcium silicate. You add CO2 to it, and what you get is a type of concrete. It's not traditional concrete. It's a type of concrete that has very high durability and strength. And this process is able to sequester a large volume of CO2 into the environment. So basically now we are turning a material that is highly polluting, highly energy intensive, and we turn it into a material with much lower carbon footprint and a material that is able to act as a carbon capture. All right, so we are going to, what we hope we can do here is to turn the table, and then we help the environment, we help our infrastructure by using a material that is more sustainable, hopefully. So it acts as a carbon sequestration material. Again, so these are some of the details, the chemistry. So I'm not gonna bore you with that. So we looked at different charges, the potential, their absorption ability, the water contact, the hydrophobicity, and things like that. Very important. Again, some extraordinary processes, some microstructure analysis. To me, this is the most interesting slide. So we use some biomolecules in this process. We were not planning on doing that, but we said, why not? Let's just see what happens. So top left is the new concrete without biomolecules. And these are micro CT images. You see cracks. It's horrible. It's bad. But the other ones, the top two and then the bottom, are in concrete with biomolecules, with different types of biomolecules that are derived from nature. Some of them, NFMP, which is derived from dry mud. Top right, you still see some cracks. You see some cracks here, but much less than control without biomolecules. But look at vapor thinner SPI. So first time we got this, I was very suspicious. This just cannot be. Let's run it again. We ran it again. My PhD student ran this again, and then we got the same set of results. Again, I was very suspicious because folks didn't typically report the cracks in the control sample, and this is problematic. So just to be sure, I had my PhD student do the test again. He was not happy, but he had no other choices. He did it. And then we got the same results. So if you don't use biomolecules, in certain situations, you're going to get large cracks that is just not acceptable. It's horrible. But look at how whey protein, right? Whey protein is a base that is derived from cheese making processes. Typically, they throw it away. Instead of okay, don't throw it away, let us make some proteins out of it. SDI is obtained from cow plasma. It's a biological waste. Okay? It's some sort of agricultural waste. And look at how beautiful they are. I see no cracks. So it shows some of the biomolecules help, some of them do not. Right? Clearly, NFMP doesn't help. Fine. But at least these two show great benefits, so we can use them. So there is hope to use certain biomolecules to improve the resilience and durability of our infrastructure. And we did some mechanical testing, and then here's the mechanism by which this process works. Again, I'm not gonna go through this. Now the third one is the fun one. Has to do with the use of machine learning, and I'm not gonna get into the machine learning part of it, but we are working on a big project where we want to be able to predict and develop different biomolecules for different applications in concrete. If you want to improve durability, we are trying to come up with a biomolecule that helps. If you want to increase other properties, we are going to come up with a new type. So this machine learning scheme allows us to do that. So we tap into protein data banks that are available publicly. In medicine, they have been using it for a long time. So they have very large data banks. So I don't know much about medicine, but I can tap into this large data set that they have. And then we try to see how we can leverage the existing infrastructure and using machine learning to allow us to find different functionality in concrete. Now I'm going to talk about only one functionality. This is machinery for different applications. You can tailor this, but today I'm going to talk about only one functionality. You see a lot of potholes, right, on road in our infrastructure. A lot of cracks. this happens because of the freeze thaw, right? So when water freezes, it expands in volume, and at certain point, boom, it puts pressure on the surrounding material and it pops, it cracks. So one way to mitigate this is to introduce small micro-sized voids in material. What they do, these micron-sized voids, they act as a buffer. So when water freezes and wants to expand, they accommodate this expansion. If you don't have these micron-sized voids, there is no way for the expansion to go. And the only way is just to crack, right? I want to expand, you have nothing for me to go, so I'm gonna crack it up, right? But if you put some tailored, engineered micron-sized voids, you allow them to go, and this way you diffuse the expansion and you prevent cracking. What do you see on the left? You have this. Say it again?
Like chocolate mousse.
Exactly, it's a chocolate mousse. What do you see here? Air pockets. How does it happen? Where do they come from?
Oh, it's in mousse. It's a fermentation.
Okay.
Respiration. CO2 respiration.
No. Simple. Okay, right. What do you bet?
To add the air.
I know. What is it that you bet?
Oh,
Eggs. Okay, if you whip water, do you get that? What is it in the egg? Proteins. Okay, that's some sort of surfactants if that helps with the process. The proteins, right? They form foam, right? They form foams. That's why you get these foamy structure. And depending on the ratio of the eggs that you use, and also you use milk. There are proteins in the milk that help with the process of foaming. Depending on the ratio of the foam, the milk, the egg, the flour that you use, you're gonna get different texture, right? That's how a baker is able to do that. Right? You change these proportions and you get different textures. Guess what? We use the same thing. We use proteins, eggs, in concrete to produce the exact same voids. Do you see the resemblance between these voids and this? This is chocolate mousse you can eat. This is concrete. Absolutely you cannot eat. But using the same types of proteins, we were able to produce these voids. And why do you want to do that? As I mentioned earlier, you want to introduce these voids to prevent cracking in concrete. So in this application, the target function that we were looking for was to create these microvoids, right? These foams. And for this specific need, you need to come up with a specific type of biomolecules. If you're after improving, let's say, permeability of concrete, you would have to use other types. And we use machine learning to allow us to develop different biomolecules for different applications. And as I said, today, I'm gonna talk about just the air foaming ability. So you see this, how we use this in, actually we learned a lot from food sciences when we are cooking. We call this cooking concrete, okay? So folks call it making, we cook concrete. We use different eggs, different proteins, so on and so forth. And it is a mixture of different things to achieve the microstructure that we are looking for. So we wanted to see how different biomolecules are able to produce different foams in concrete. So again, we use micro-CT, and you see the wide range of different structure that biomolecules are able to produce for you. If you're after this type, you need to use a specific type of working. If you're looking for something like this with larger voids, less distributed, you need to use another type. So the machine learning algorithm is able to allow us to find different biomolecules depending on the target needs that we have. So we also looked at data microstructure. So I think that is not in the scope of the interest today. to just look at the morphology at the micron level. And here are some machine learning results. We try to look at how physical and chemical properties of these biomolecules are related to the film that they produce. So these are some of the maps that we were able to produce. And what we observed was that the contact angle, it's a measure of hydrophobicity of the proteins. Hydrophobicity of proteins has a clear correlation with the porosity in concrete. So I'm gonna stop here, and I'm gonna acknowledge the funding agency that supported our research, NSF, DOT, and different other NASA agencies. So if you like what you saw, all the credits go to my graduate and undergraduate students and postdocs. If you didn't like it, if you have problems with it, it's on me. I'm more than happy to talk to you about that, but I would like to thank them. They are the machine, they are the ones who did the work. I was in my lab just making sure things are in the right track. We also do some community engagement to be able to attract more students into STEM. I always have this guy this is an old image. I think it's probably 9 or 8 years old. So he started as, I think, elementary school student in my lab, and now he's finishing up his bachelor's and he's still doing research.
He started working in your lab in elementary school?
Yes, look at him. Not full time. Not full time. Okay. Not full time. Okay. And he was one of the best. Okay. He was one of the best that I had. And then he's now doing and finishing up, and he still works in my lab. So that's why I like this image. And if I have one student that I can take from elementary school all the way to graduate, hopefully, that's enough. That's enough for me. That's good. And also the graduate, undergraduate, and collaborators, I want to acknowledge their work, references, and I'm more than happy to take any questions you might have.